My apologies. Welcome to the Cabinet today on the 4th of March. And can I just say thank you and welcome to our guests here today. I do hope you enjoy seeing us make our decisions today at the Cabinet. So moving on, we've got apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
I've received apologies from Councillor Alcock.
And do we have any disclosures of interest that anybody wants to declare on any item that's on the agenda? Moving on, we have the minutes of the previous meeting that was held here. Do we have anybody that wants to raise any questions about the minutes, or are we happy to accept them and move on? Do I have a proposer to accept the minutes? Councillor Coucher has proposed. Do we have someone, and Councillor Curtis has seconded. Are you all happy with that? Agree? Thank you. Moving on then to the next item, which is matters to be referred to the Council. There were none. Matters for decision by the Cabinet. And the first item is the performance monitoring report, which is to consider the performance achieved during Q3, April to December 2023, monitoring the delivery of key performance indicators. We've got a good report here that lays out the 26 performance indicators that were set to monitor performance in year 3, 16 related to council plan objectives, and 10 are corporate health indicators. We've got 2 indicators that have not been reported for good reason. One outside body unable to supply result, and the other one due to a systems upgrade. The indicator has not been reported. But if I could take any questions about any of the targets and any of the key performance indicators that are in the Appendix 1, happy to see what information can be gathered. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I know and I think I've mentioned this in Cabinet Forum. I know we haven't got a report on the heart performance indicator, but I'd just like to sort of flag up that various concerns have been raised over performance of heart over the last year. So I think I'd just like to have that noted, please. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, and this was discussed at the Ovion Scrutiny Committee as well, I understand. So that has been through that process. Councillor, do you want to say anything about that?
I don't mind if you want to know, or bring it up through my normal part of the agenda.
So we have, okay, Councillor. Yeah, okay. Councillor Rock, if Councillor Rock wants to come in.
Just give it a second.
Right, am I in business? Thank you very much. Yeah. I'll look across to that side of the table. On the residual waste per household, and the December figures are provisional. I just wondered if there's an update on that. Presumably this is something to do with a peculiar period of public behaviour. Has some sort of effect on that.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one that we suddenly had a jump in residual household waste. We know not why, but no, we don't get the confirmed figures until the end of this month because they're kind of a quarter behind. So as soon as we get them, hopefully they'll be a little bit better, and hopefully this quarter will be better again. And it was hopefully just a temporary blip in people's behaviour.
Thank you for that information and explanation. Have we got any other questions that want to be raised? Councillor Wally-Huggins.
Yes, I'm sure you won't mind me raising this, but it is to do with the average end-to-end time for overall disabled facilities grant case delivery, and this is something that has come before this council on numerous occasions in the past, and it's the holding to account of a third party. I realise that, and it's really is the progress that's being made in order to ensure that our residents are getting a rapid response to their needs, and what your plans are in order to to do that. I know that it's not been reported, I assume, by heart, but it is, again, just some reassurance for our more vulnerable residents as to what we're going to do and what's going to be achieved. This is not a reflection on this report. It is just the fact that this really does matter to people and that the response is as rapid as possible. Thank you.
I perfectly understand, because I've raised that myself in over the last 2 to 3 years, that there were problems. But Annette Homer, who is our head of department, would be able to say more.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, whilst it's not reported here, what I can confirm is there's being a total review of the process of how HARP works, but also on a positive point, our budget and the number of applications that have been processed is far ahead of those of the other districts, so we are pushing those through. So I think the service delivery on the ground is better than it would appear from this report.
But we need those figures to be able to, and that they will. I hope that will come as soon as possible. Thank you very much. We have a recommendation, and that is that the position in relation to Q3 Performance Monitoring Report 2023-24 is received, and any issues identified for further consideration be addressed by a further report to the Cabinet and the portfolio holder. So those items, some of the questions that have been raised today will come through that recommendation with any further reports. Do we have somebody who will propose that? Councillor Coles? And as somebody will second, Councillor Grocott. Are you all in accord with that, and do you agree? Okay, thank you. Moving on. The next item is the Performance Management Framework, proposed key performance indicators and council plan actions. This one is a really important item because it considers the proposed council plan action and key performance indicators and the monitoring arrangements that will go forward for 2024-25 on the new council plan. It is essential that we have those that we have those indicators and that we're able to monitor that we are doing what we said in the council plan. So if you go through the document, you will see that there's several targets that we need to set ourselves, and some of them have already been achieved. Despite the council plan being recent, we are, for example, now publishing all public meetings on the SDC channel. So every meeting now is published and available for the members of the public to see. And we've also done the report that is going out in the council plan leaflet posting, which I think was a really good leaflet, and I hope that will help people with learning more about what the council is doing. But I don't know if there's any questions on any of the items that we're going forward, because some of them are not yet determined as to when they'll be reported or what format, but they are our actions to go forward, and we do need to make sure that we do monitor our performance. Councillor Coles.
It's not a question as much, it's just, I think it's giving ourselves a good structure to actually form projects that we can achieve and essentially mark ourselves against the action plan. So I think it's a good structure to take forward and work within.
Thank you. Councillor Wally-Hoggins.
Yes, I know that a lot of the status is TBD, which I assume is to be decided. To be determined, sorry, but also I know, and I raised this previously, that within the council plan action that you've written is that there is a distinct lack of the cost for each item here, because one of the key performance indicators of actions is the budget that you've set aside in order to make that happen, and also then whether or not it runs over budget or under budget as well. That's something, for the transparency for residents that is important, and I'm disappointed that is lacking from this plan, that there are set aside the money that each of these items is going to cost for residents. Thank you.
I'll bring the Chief Executive at this time.
Thank you, Leader. The 2 points. The Reference TBD, I should have put a key on that, and apologies, it is to be determined. We're setting the council plan actions today, and we will monitor them. It's a bit early to monitor some of them before they've actually been established. In relation to the costs for delivery of the council plan, you'll recall at council last week, that short meeting that we had where we set the budget, there was 2.2 million that was put aside for the council plan and change programme. And if there are resource requirements coming forward to implement the actions, then there will be further reports to the Cabinet about how that money will be spent. One particular area that I can say with some certainty that we'll be looking for some Cabinet support on is around things like the apprenticeship programme that we want to implement underneath the staff strategy, which itself is one of the junior documents, if you like, to the overall council plan. So the Cabinet will be the forum. There'll be full transparency about how that resource will be deployed.
Yeah, another question?
Yeah, it's only to go back to that. Yes, I'm cognizant of the 2.2 million that's set aside for the plan, but again, it is how much of that 2.2 million is going to be set aside for each bit here, because at the moment it just looks as if there's a glorious pot of 2.2 million, which we must never forget is hard-earned taxpayers' money that's formed that pot. And I do think, in the interest of one of your first priority here is to be transparent, be a transparent council, is to know exactly how much of that money is to be spent on each of these objectives. Thank you.
That will be part of the regular monitoring financial review that comes to every single cabinet, and every single item will be costed. For example, we are putting aside an amount of money for the community transport service, the U-bus. There is a sum of money in here to support the service, but we are waiting on the county council's procurement before we can make a final decision on that one. So sometimes we are reliant on other people and being able to get the actual prices from others as well as ourselves to be able to put the final sums on it. But we've been it is part of the regular review of a regular report that will come to Cabinet, and everything will be costed. Councillor Rock.
Thank you, Chair. Sort of following on from that on the TB, on page 41, the council will launch a community climate change fund. It says February 2024 on there, and it says TBD. Probably that's partially achieved, isn't it? Because I think we've done that, haven't we? I'm just wondering if that minute is correct in that table.
And before before Tony Perks comes in, he may be able to also fill in another TBD, which is about the relation to leisure centre roofs in the near future. There is, perhaps you can update us that there was a bid has gone in for that.
Yes, very happy to do that, Leader. In terms of the Community Climate Change Fund, Councillor Rock, yes, that has been launched. We are out for expressions of interest for the first batch of projects for the £50,000 allocation that you've made to that in the first phase. We're appraising those at the moment and sort of inviting detailed bids from them. So that's, yes, has further progressed than was suggested when this was published. In terms of the swimming pool roof fund, yes, we have made a grant application, a bid application to the swimming pool roof fund, and we will be looking to use that to sort of, we've been successful in that, and we'll be looking to use that to contribute to the funding of the photovoltaic arrays that you want to put on the roofs of your leisure centres. We're also working with the Warwickshire, one of the local solar farms. You've got a community sort of energy fund that we can sort of draw some funding down for that, so there'll be proposals coming forward to the Cabinet for both of those in due course.
So a lot of these things are under development, but they're not finalised. Councillor Coucher.
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, I think one of the areas which is fundamental to quite a number of these objectives is clearly the review that we're doing of our planning service going forward, and clearly that will be a call on the £2.2 million that we have, but at the moment we still don't have the complete scope of that work yet outlined. So I think this is a document that's going to develop, I think, quarter by quarter going forward, and at the moment we can't just allocate sums of money out willy-nilly here. We need to see some precise costings about what that's going to involve.
One of the, I'll bring Councillor Curtis in a minute, but one of the things that I'm particularly pleased about is the fact that it says to undertake discussions with Environment Agency, Severn Trent and Warwickshire County Council surrounding drainage and sewage, and then promoting good practice across the district. Actually, we've already started that as well. We've already had some initial meetings, and I have to thank our head of service for the work that was done during recent flooding events and the emergency work that was done here at Stratford District Council. We are not the flood management group at all. That is the County Council, but we are take our role as being a convener to be able to bring together a disparate partnership to be able to make sure that we are using those powers, but also translating that into the work that we do in the local plan as well to adapt to to work, and we have to work with other partners, but it is a partnership work, and we have to work with the lead flood authority, which is the County Council, on that. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair, Leader. Yes, communications has already been brought up this morning in our session earlier on. And I'm pleased to see on page 33, development under my portfolio, wide-ranging digital strategy, reviewing method of communications, review of the council website. These have been in the performance management framework and been reported as being ongoing for some time, but I would really like to see that working with the team, this will actually be delivered this time. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. And there's several other things that we need to, for example, the funding for the rural, the crime work, rural crime officer role is already through and was part of the budget. So, and I had a very good meeting with a couple of them at Great Orme Parish Council's Community Day on Saturday. So I was really, really pleased to see that team. Anything else? And Councillor Crump.
Yes, there's a couple of things. Just briefly talking on. At Everyone's Scrutiny on Friday, again, we spoke about prioritising direct contact with residents. That was one of the things, and particularly not one size fits all, not one in terms of the demographic of our population, and also that obviously the east, south, north, west parts of the district as well. So I think that's important. We also spoke about obviously the need to improve the website. That came from a couple of councillors that had cross-party support. Regarding, I totally agree with Councillor Coucher, and Councillor Coucher is probably surprised about that because I'm agreeing with him, because we spoke about the SIL allocations, and I think to review the process before you spend the money, etc. And obviously OC had a big input, and I know Councillor Keithley and I both worked on that as well in response to that. So I think that makes sense and is wise. I certainly agree with that. I think we would like to see, where it's possible, and I know these coming forward on a quarterly basis, the progress. There just seemed to be a lot, and I know we're all busy and staff have got a lot on. It just seemed to be lots going on. So again, have we got the capacity to do these things as well? And will that cause any delays? Particularly when we've been speaking about staff absences impacting on some service delivery. So again, that's balancing that conundrum. You spoke briefly about the flooding and the drainage, and I can't resist coming in as portfolio holders at the county. I think there's work does need to be done, particularly for coordinating the street sweeping that Councillor Rock and I have discussed, and we'll probably be discussing it in Upton tonight as well. And I think there's some works there can be done, so I think that's quite important. Would also be good to see, obviously some of the works is started already. So if there is a possibility, obviously I know, sorry Julie, close your ears, obviously there's been some work done on the HVO project. So it'd be interesting to see what expenditure was on that, whether things have, so yeah, I think lots of good work here. If they can be broken down into, yes, this is likely to take place very shortly, this is what we spent already, or this is going to be funded from this fund or that fund, that would be helpful. And I know Councillor Curtis and I have both agreed, again, very rare again, but we both agreed to do with the climate change panel, where there was lots of TBD or ongoing or, there was no definitive timescales. And I think that is helpful as well, because members of the public will be seeing lots of good initiatives, but not potentially knowing when they're going to happen. So I think some clarity around those would be helpful. And again, you're early in the process, so we are pragmatic enough to realise that these things will take time to develop. But it would be good to see the progress and put out in a simple form that the chair of Over in Scrutiny can understand readily as well.
I'll bring in Councillor Rock, but we've always, as a council, done a quarterly performance monitoring report on the previous council plan. We agreed a council plan at the last council meeting, and this is the first action plan now for those performance monitoring indicators going forward. So we will continue with the same the quarterly performance monitoring report. We actually have a very, very good performance monitoring team. Councillor Rock.
Thank you. Completely new subject, but also on page 33, which is the local council's charter. Now, I recognise this is working across all of Warwickshire, but it's something the Chief Executive and I have spoken about over some months, really. I just wonder, we haven't really even got a target here. And I know we've got to pull together a lot of strands, but we've got a three-level authority here, and I'm hearing not a need for clarity across not just this authority, but other adjoining authorities. It would be nice if we could get clarification of roles for district councils working with parishes and at the county as well. I wonder if the Chief Executive could give us some warm feeling that this is progressing, or whether we can speed the progress of that, because I think we are looking for a document that clarifies those roles, particularly for those of us that have got a large number of parishes.
I'll bring the Chief Executive in.
I'm not sure I can give you a warm feeling, Nigel. But just to say, you're right, we're working collaboratively on this. We've got all the district councils apart from Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council. Of course, Nuneaton don't have any parish councils at all, working alongside Walk, the county council, and then some of the more high-profile clerks from across the whole of the county on a working group, which is reviewing the charter. The charter does lay out already the kind of expectations what the local councils can receive from the district councils and the county council, and in return what we expect from the parish councils. The way of the conversation so far, it will be more of evolution rather than revolution. We're hopeful we can get to a position where we can take through democratic processes in each of the authorities by about July is the kind of deadline that we're looking for the approval of that document. But we are one of several players in that discussion.
Thank you. Unless there's any other questions, there is a recommendation, and that's the...
Sorry, if I may, could I just highlight to the Cabinet, as well as the council plan actions, we're agreeing also the performance measures for next year. And there are 4 new performance measures which are being suggested. Those 4 new performance measures mirror what Oflog will be monitoring our authority by, and I thought it was useful that we keep an eye on that. Well, you as the executive keep an eye on our performance in those 4 areas as well. So it's not just the council plan actions; it is the new performance.
No, you are quite correct. There are say that in recycling contamination rate, and I'll bring Councillor Grocott in on that one. Number of upheld complaints and a number of other ones that have been brought in that are new to the targets and the indicators that we set ourselves. Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, it was the new recycling contamination rate I was going to query. I mean, you've got it proposed down as 5% for 24-25. I was just wondering where that came from. I mean, currently, I think the Sherborne Murph, their contamination rate is running at about 20%. So I was just seeing one, maybe could be more like 15%. rather than 5%, but I just wondered what the background was, where that had come from. Thank you.
Councillor.
Chairman, I can respond to that particular point. The recycling contamination rate that's been cited here isn't just from dry recycle, it's from all of our recycling streams. So, of course, we do food waste recycling and we also do garden waste recycling as well. Garden waste recycling contamination rate is much lower and it is heavier than the current dry recyclers. Our current performance on the Offlog website is 6% for the year, so this is a stretch target. I'm in your hands here. It's been proposed at 5%. If you wanted a variation of that target, then that's absolutely up to you.
I think that has been agreed with officers that that 5% is that just. I think
Julie may disagree. Possibly
okay.
think
this has come from government, as I understand it. Would you like to come in at this point?
I think I've gone into this in quite a bit of detail. I think the concern is, I mean, Mr. Buckland's quite right. It does include green waste and food waste, of which the contamination is just about zero because we don't get any reports back of that. So that the figure is fundamentally actually reflecting our dry recycling, which to date has been very, very low. I think the concern is with the new Sherborne. I'm not saying our contamination will go up, but it could well be quantified or accounted for differently because we're in a completely different environment as to how it's being dealt with and how it's actually being sampled. So I don't think there's any guarantee that we're kind of, if you like, comparing apples with apples on the previous figure. And that's my concern, and I'd rather err on the side of caution, but at the same time, absolutely, as Mr. Buckland says, you know, we don't want to look as though we've suddenly got really, really bad on our contamination rates, because I'm sure they won't be.
Because the facility is actually taking in waste from far more than just this one council now. It's taking in shared from across a number of councils. That is the case, except they have assured me from the 1st of March they will separate our recycling out completely. At the minute it is dealt with Warwick's, and as far as they can, they will start to separate that out so that we get more of a separate figure, although we do still have some joint rounds that collect from Warwick and Stratford. So it should only reflect ourselves. It's just that how they measure and how they sample contamination does vary from place to place, so we might see a difference. But if we do see a difference, we can account for why we've got a difference. Councillor Rock, do you want to come in and then
yes,
we'll move on?
I think it's an interesting point, and it's a wider point as well, because if we're going to have a target, the implication is we've got control or at least influence over those figures. Now, this is influencing the behaviour of our residents, isn't it? And we've talked about communication, and that influence is going to be through communication. And I have some unease when we introduce a new target that we are careful that we have that influence and control over it. You know, it's a quality management principle, isn't it? The other point that I would draw on, it sounds like we wouldn't have that. If we've got one figure of 6%, to what extent that is one discrete value, and we won't know what that trend is. I mean, was there a lot of fluctuation? What confidence levels have we got on that variation going forward? So I think it sounds like we've got to consider this as being a bit provisional. Now, it would be unfortunate in view of circumstances we find that this is relatively unachievable. We've set ourselves something that we can't. It's not really a smart target, and we had to increase it. Would we not be better to set ourselves something that we could achieve, and if it's working out because we get better data going forward, we could reduce it rather than go the other way? It's a thought I put forward, and I don't know whether we could have a look at this target when we've got a bit more data in a couple of months' time. Would that be a sensible thing to do?
Chairman, if I could Chair, if I could respond on that point. Look, this is your opportunity to set the target for the year. But the current performance rate is 6%. what we have been told the suite of indicators that Oflog will be looking at. They don't give us what level of performance they expect to see in this area. They judge us against our peers, and we're performing well at the moment at 6%. Hearing what Julie was just discussing in relation to the new arrangements at Sherborne, whether you reverted to the current performance as the future target, given those uncertainties, that could be a strategy. But we would need. I'd like to capture that now within the performance framework rather than coming back in the future. So I'd like to set what our target is now, if that's okay, Chairman.
No, Councillor Curtis, you wanted to come in on this, please.
There's a separate topic, Leader, so if we want to...
No, I think we should aim high, but obviously, if there are any difficulties, please do report back. But I think we've always performed well on recycling. I would hope that we could perform to this target that has been put forward. Any Councillor Curtis?
Just a query over the proposed target 2024 by units of bed and breakfast into temporary accommodation. I'll touch on number 1 Evesham Place briefly in my capital budgeting report. But given that the idea, I understand, behind the purchase and use of number 1 Evesham Place is to reduce our reliance on B&B accommodation, I wonder if that should be reflected in the target. It's on page 47, second column down, second line down. In the target, I would have thought perhaps it would be reducing.
Annette Comer.
Thank you. I would envisage that the work on Evesham Place is finished about September time. Then, of course, we've got to, and before then, we can commission the provider of the care and support and get that sort of unit into the flow from Fred Winter or directly let into to Evesham Place. We could reduce the target, but I think probably it'll be next year when we set a tougher target, because it'll be towards the end of the year and we'll be working towards what that provision really looks like and what it means on the ground.
Thank you. I've got, who have I got now? Councillor Rock or Councillor Grocott? Councillor Grocott, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, it was just a separate one as well. Again, on page 44, the Council will review the approach to engagement with communities and town and parish councils coming under Head of Environmental and Neighbourhood Services. I just wanted to query what did that pertain to? Because is this through, I mean, we have the outreach, the sports and leisure outreach workers, but that is a separate action under this framework.
Chief Executive, Joe.
I'm trying to recall the conversation we had at management team on this particular issue. I believe you're right. I think it's linked to the work that we're doing with the active community strategy and everyone active on the leisure contract, but also recognition of the restructuring that's been undertaken within environment and neighbourhood services at the moment to give that wider community response to to all of the areas within the council. That has been identified, part of the council plan. It's under this area, support parish councils for the benefit of the community, to support those kind of localities as we move forward.
Yeah. We'll explore that, and it'll be part of the report backs that we get in future times. So moving forward then, we've got the proposed council plan actions. They are on Appendix 1. And then we had the key performance indicators and targets that were on Appendix 2 for 2024 to 25. And the recommendation is that they be approved. I'm proposing that recommendation. Anybody that wants to second it? Councillor Coles? Are you all in favour? All right, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And moving on. Now, this one falls under Councillor Rock and Tony Perks, the Deputy Chief Executive, and it's about 9 Timothy's Bridge Road. And there's several recommendations there, but we need to hear a little bit more about the background.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you will have read the papers. This is a proposal that we'll support an initiative that Homes England have taken across several sites. It will enable us to progress what's been a bit of a difficult area, and I would point out that one of the things that we've been faced with in the existing arrangements is a very low provision in that area of affordable homes, and this would certainly bring it up to, well, it mentions 20% in here. Our general objective in developments is 35%. That is a minimum, I believe. Officers, correct me. We would hope to exceed that, and it's a very complicated set of leasing and ownership arrangements in the whole area around there. But this will unlock possibilities of enabling others to release finance and bring something forward that we simply welcome. We're not entirely masters of our destiny in respect of others, but if the Deputy Chief Executive would like to help us with a bit more detail, I'm sure he'll put right anything I've said that's incorrect.
Thank you, Councillor Rock. No, there are no factual errors in what you said. That's good. Yeah, what we're seeking here today is, as Councillor Rock alluded to, an in-principle decision. The Canal Quarter is one of our key sites in our core strategy. It's one of our key allocations, and it's the main housing growth within sort of Stratford, which is is our major town. The existing site, a large part of the existing site is owned by Berkeley Homes, who are looking to dispose of their interests. Homes England are making an offer to them, and as part of that, they would like us to sort of buy out a lease on a piece of land where we already own the freehold. It's a technical property transaction and work in partnership with them. The key benefits for us is we'll see delivery of one of our key sites, and we should also be able to achieve a significant improvement in the affordable housing percentage. As Nigel alluded, the current consent on viability grounds is only providing 3% affordable housing. Homes England's minimum requirement is 20%, and we will look to get closer to our sort of 35% as part of it. The point of it not being masters of our own destiny is this is obviously subject to the deal with Homes England going through. We've had feedback from Homes England this morning that is still looking positive, and if that falls into place, this will help deliver that. Without this acquisition of the lease, it would be very difficult for Homes England to sort of acquire that land. So that's the decision we're making today. As I say, it's an in-principle decision. We've got the funding allocated from an earmarked reserve. It'll obviously be subject to sort of technical due diligence. We have a provisional valuation report which we've circulated this morning from our valuers, Avison Young, suggesting this is a low-risk financial transaction for the council, in that what we're acquiring is worth more than we're paying for it. And so I think we've got all the key points in place to allow you to make this decision this morning if you're comfortable. But I'm taking any questions.
I'll bring in the Chief Executive first, and then I'll bring in Councillor Coucher.
Thank you, Leader. Reference has been made to the valuation. Well, it's not a valuation per se, it's a letter that we've received from the valuers. That's on exempt, that's on blue papers. If you wanted to talk about that, we would have to move into exempt session. If Cabinet were minded to support this transaction, we would require a full valuation before we could progress with the purchase. I just want to make that point.
Councillor Coucher.
Thank you. This council is very keen to get on and resolve many of these sites, which at the moment are not a great attribute for the town. And I have to declare an old interest that I used to work on one of the buildings that remains derelict up on Timothy's Bridge Road. And frankly, I think for local people, seeing that site at the moment in its current state is not satisfactory. We have a indicative scheme there, which frankly is also not terribly satisfactory to this particular council, and frankly the amount of potential affordable housing in that scheme is derisory basically, and I'm amazed it actually went through previously. I think we should welcome Homes England's interest in the site. The opportunity we have of actually producing some development which will be, I think, a credit to the town, and I think if that involves a modest investment by this council, we should support it.
Yeah, just to outline to anybody that doesn't know the history, the master plan was adopted in July 2018. Several planning permissions have been granted on the land, but no building has commenced on the site. This proposal from Homes England actually starts to unlock the future of that site. And if we can do anything to help, I think it would be welcomed. Councillor Curtis.
Yes, thank you, Joe. I'm at Cabinet Forum when the proposed housing, affordable housing, was at 3%. There was a sharp intake of breath around the table. So I think if this can move us towards getting a much more realistic affordable housing percentage, I think that'd be absolutely welcomed.
Councillor Crump.
Thank you, Councillor Ginnard. The Deputy Chief Executive and I have been in conversation about this item. It seems to make sense, but obviously from a Review and Scrutiny Committee, I'm sure Mr Perks will be able to brief the committee as and when things start to progress. And obviously there does seem to be quite a thorough risk assessment on item 6.1, but again, we will we scrutinise that just to make sure things are going as promised.
So we've got the decision to make. Councillor Rock, do you want to come in now before we move on?
I wanted to propose a recommendation, Chair.
Councillor, the Chief Executive.
I'm not councillor yet. Chairman, before we get to that particular point, I made reference to the full valuation report that would be required before we could progress. Could we preface recommendation 3 to subject to a full valuation report that the Deputy Chief Executive in consultation with the leader, etc., be incorporated as part of the recommendations?
Councillor Gist, is that part of your recommendation
yes,
as well?
one of my questions on this document, but yes, thank you. That I'm happy with that. Yeah.
So subject to that amendment, because we do need to be sure of that valuation. This is a site that has permission for quite considerable number. I think it's for up to 500 dwellings. So we are talking quite large numbers here. Is there anybody, Councillor Sarah Wiley-Huggins?
Thank you, Chair. It just really, it's more of an observation than a question, because this is a highly complicated site. We all know that because this has been in the ether for some years now. And there are so many ways in which this proposal could fall over, as it were, notwithstanding is the amount that it will cost this council should anybody who is involved in the sale of any of the land should change their mind over sale particulars. And I think it's very important within this document, or as an addition to this document, is to say how we intend to mitigate potential crises along the way with this. And again, I know that Homes England are interested in this, but is there another, if Homes England fall away, is there another housing provider that will be wanting to step in? It is all of that really that I'm it is so fundamental and important. It is just having, backstop positions each way, which I think perhaps we could have done with in the past, but we did have COVID in the middle of all of that as well, so thank you.
Councillor Gist.
I agree, and that's why I think the valuation is really important for us to have.
And then once the decision is taken, that will be for our officers to get the evaluation and to explore and make sure that we've got everything absolutely. Councillor Wiley-Huggins.
Yes, sorry, I know this is a key site for all of the residents, and it is that really, and again it goes back to the plan, is how we are going to report back on the progress or otherwise, all the obstacles that have been met, and how we're intending to get over them, because never is anything of this scale just an easy trot down to the finish line. And it is all of that again, in that transparency that we need, so that people can fully understand the complexities really of it. And it's how that reporting is going to be, both for residents and for all councillors, because again it's a chunk of money that is going to be spent on this. Thank you.
Can I ask the Deputy Chief Executive to give that assurance, please?
Yeah, I can give assurance. The way that we sort of monitor our housing delivery, which is our key thing, is regularly reported sort of in through the council's mechanisms at the moment. So we will continue to sort of monitoring housing delivery. If that starts to fall short, currently we've got a very strong 10-year housing supply, so we're not under a lot of sort of pressure from this site, but it is a key allocation. It is of importance to us, which is hence why we're trying to work with Homes England to bring this forward. If it helps the Cabinet and those here today, the proposal from Homes England would be to acquire the site. In conjunction with Berkeley Homes, they would sort of complete the demolition and sort of remediate and sort of package the site and then pass it on to individual developers to sort of to deliver it, probably 100 units a year off the site. So that's how it's envisaged to come forward. In terms of financial risk to the council, we already own the freehold of the Landmark 3 in Appendix 1, so we're just acquiring the leasehold, so we'll have sort of full title to that. As part of the Homes England deal, they would acquire all of the interests in the other packages 1, 2, 4 and 5. So between us then we would have complete control of that site, freehold and leasehold, and we'd be in a position to package that, and that would vastly improve our chances of delivery. So that's what we're doing at the moment. I'm happy to report back progress on that to anywhere and anywhere, really.
And if you want to go into more detail, you do have the blue papers in front of us, but we would have to go into exempt if we wanted to, ask a lot of the detail and the information that you've asked is actually on those blue papers. Okay, so unless anybody's got anything that they want to further take on.
Yeah, so I'm happy to propose this as amended by the recommendations from Councillor Giston, Chief Executive. I'll look for a second.
Councillor Coucher is seconding that. We have 3 recommendations before us. That the Cabinet agree to acquire the head leasehold interest of 9 Timothy's Bridge Road, that the acquisition be funded, and that is subject to an evaluation, that the acquisition be funded from the Revenue Fund of Capital Expenditure Earmarked Reserve, and that the Deputy Chief Executive, in consultation with the Deputy Leader of the Council, the Portfolio Holder for Resources, the Head of Resources and the Head of Law and Governance, are authorised to complete the negotiations required and to implement the decision. And the alteration was that it was be subject to the valuation. So accepting that amended recommendation, are you in favour? All right, agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Now, the next item is one that refers particularly to Stratford-upon-Avon, but it's key part of what the District Council does with the Market Forum, the bid, the Town Council. It's a partnership. There was a contract for the Victorian Market, which was agreed in 2017, rolled over in 2022, and the report is outlines some of the problems that contract gives us, given that last year the market operated at full capacity over 4 days, caused considerable congestion, and we've had considerable advice given to us from the Safety Advice Group about the numbers that can be accommodated and the problems that arise because of the weak contract. So maybe Councillor Grocott, you could outline that and give us a little bit of a background as to the problems and the difficulties that we're facing on this issue.
Yes, thank you, Leader. As you said, since 2017, we've had a market contract where we run a number of regular markets, plus some additional special markets, which the Victorian Christmas market comes under. And this is run in co-leasing with the Town Council, and our contractor is LSD, and they have been running these regular events. One of the special markets that we do is the Christmas market, which has been running since 2017. In 2022, there was a variation to agree for it to be a, I quote, 4-day Christmas market within a town centre Christmas festival. End of. And this is sort of part of the issue that we have at the moment, is the fact that we have a legacy contract that's been running since 2017, has been rolled over, and there is quite a lack of clarity to certain points of it. So coming back to the Victorian market in 2023, victims of our own success, we had a very, very, very large turnout. We had people coming in that had been diverted from another Christmas market, Lincoln Christmas market, in coaches. So we had the town centre at full capacity. We had various, as the safety advisory group mentioned, we had overcrowding, especially on the Saturday. We had people 12 deep going around the market stalls. Other things, the location of the bus stops, people were in coaches, they were getting let out and just running across the gyratory, not ideal. We had excessive noise from a fun fair, which was now being part of it. Traffic movement generally across the district was not particularly good. Practical issues such as the public toilet provision, certain food hygiene issues which had been mentioned before, and just a general mission creep from the original markets that had been put in place from 2017. The Safety Advisory Group had a review of this, and they brought up quite a few safety issues. So the paper that we are describing today, it is to do with the safety. The town, the Victorian Christmas market was very well attended, but as is the nature with these things, 50% of people, as a town councillor said to me, 50% of people are in great support of it, 50% people are dead against it, and another 50% don't either way. And it is the nature of the thing. If you've seen sort of the, this is not just a bit of paper here, it's been on the front page of the Herald. We need to make sure that of everything we get this right from a health and safety point of view, because we do not want to take the risk with visitors and our residents as well. One of the so the suggestion has been, sorry, getting back to the point, was that that we apply some mitigation to this. Now, just to stress, this is we are in co-leasing with the town council, so this is our decision, and it has no bearing on what the town council decides amongst themselves. We do need to come together and then have our recommendation to the market contractor. So after the discussions with the Safety Advisory Group and officers that are involved with the markets, and obviously my head of service, the recommendation for mitigation would be that, well, there was a number of recommendations. One was that, I can't find the recommendations.
62.
62.
The bottom.
Oh, yes, sorry. There you go, can't read. All right, so the options available to the Cabinet were, for number one, cancel the Victorian market, which would obviously address all the safety issues, but we do have other partners that are involved in this, and it is not a unilateral thing for us to do. Leave the format as is, okay, running from Thursday to Sunday. Amend the format. The other is amend the format to 2 consecutive weekends, and this would be with a revised footprint with less market stalls to add to the space for visitors. Also, to not have the fun fair or the stage, which have sort of sprung up over the years, and also, or to the fourth is to propose an alternative option. So our recommendation should be those focusing very much on the health and safety, because obviously there are a lot of opinions about what people think about which car parks we use, what the different stalls should be, but those are secondary issues. The primary issue is working out exactly how many, the time and the format of the Victorian market should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Lewis, do you want to come in and give us a bit more background?
Yeah, if I can just clarify on the options. So where it says 2.1, cancel the VCM, can I just stress at this point, because it says after that, LSD has agreed in principle to the changes. I need to clarify that LSD have not at this point agreed in principle to the changes. Their favour is that they want another 4-day market, Thursday to Sunday, that we do not see as a viable option due to the health and safety concerns. Their definition of 2 weekend markets was actually 2 3-day weekend markets, which would actually extend the market from 4 days to 6 days. And that's, well, I'll leave you to make your own decisions on that one, but that was their preference. So just to stress, in terms of contractual kind of what they've actually agreed to at the minute is actually none of these other than running it exactly as it is, as it stands.
I mean, just to stress the difficulty is there is a contract for 4 days, so that is a contractual, but the contract has no boundaries. So, for example, in 2007 there was 207 stalls. Last year there was 320 stalls. So, and there is nothing in the contract that prevents the number of stalls increasing or going further. The district council pays 60% of the total income for that market, for the contract, and the town council pays 40%. So it is a partnership that has to go between the two, and that's all set in the contract as well. I understand. I think I'm correct on that one. So we have to work with our partners at the town council. It all has to go through the markets forum, etc., and various things to make sure before any final decision. So this is going to be by this cabinet to find out what the view is of this cabinet. They say the main, as I understand it from, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the advice from the safety advice group is that whatever plans are made, there is a serious risk of being unable to accommodate further uplift in the numbers within the current footprint of the market, and there are serious concerns on safe capacity limits and congestion and inconvenience. Whatever we do, we have to also work with others on the congestion, working with the county council, for example, on the congestion issues, because residents were seriously affected by the congestion. I have spoken to quite a lot of people. I do know, various points of view that have been, but we are in this position because we do have the contracts exist. Is there any other comments that Councillor Grocott, I don't know whether Councillor Rock wants to come in at this point, and the Chief Executive? No. Oh, no, okay. Councillor Crump at the end. Councillor Grocott, Councillor Rock, and then Councillor Crump, and then Councillor Curtis.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to also add to the option 3.2. Even if we do decide today to go with the 2 consecutive weekends, this is going to be 2.3. Sorry, can't count. Even if we do decide, the cabinet decides to go to the 2.3 for 2 consecutive weekends, this will be subject to further overview by Safety Advisory Group moving forward. So there will be, and one thing that has come from this is we'll be having more enhanced process of reviewing the arrangements if a Victorian market does take place this year. And if we are not satisfied that these arrangements are satisfactory, the Safety Advisory Group could then recommend that we don't go forward with this. Thank you.
So just to ask that question, we would have the option of cancelling the contract, but there would be a cost to the councils, both councils, from doing that, I would assume. Maybe officers can come back at the end. Councillor Rock and Councillor Curtis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It is slightly in that vein of clarification because, again, we're not masters completely of our destiny here. And there's a sort of, it's the opposite of no taxation without representation. We're here to get income from this, but we're not masters of it. So we've got a contract, which if we decided to do something else that not all parties to the contract were happy with, we'd have to abrogate the contract in some way. On the other hand, if there's some major problem of a safety nature, I don't think anybody would be happy with somebody being run over or major accident. And we might, I don't know, I'll defer to our legal team over here, but I'd be very concerned about our responsibility. You know, we do have to have a risk-based view of this in comparing the risk of abrogating a contract in some way versus whatever liability we might have, even indirectly for this. So I don't know whether we could have a comment to that at due point. But I'm wondering if the recommendation itself, wording might be improved that by saying that the option 2.3 is approved in that we are recommending altering the format of the Victorian market, because we can't alter it, can we? We can only recommend it's altered to those that have the decision making. Am I right in saying that? All we can do is suggest it should be changed in the contract, but if LSD don't want to do it, we can only recommend it. That's my question.
Can I bring Julie Lewis in at this point, and then I'll bring in Councillor Curtis after that.
Yeah, I'll perhaps answer some of your legal points as well here. To be clear, all three parties need to agree to what happens going forward. But I stress that if LSD or the Town Council say, well, we want to go with another 4-day market, if you agree now, no, that's not acceptable, we don't agree with that, it can't happen. What moves forward needs to happen completely, regardless of what, you know, LSD might say, yeah, we want 2-3-day markets. If we don't approve that, it can't happen. Equally, if the Town Council say they don't want 2-day markets, we have to find our way round what can go forward. Fundamentally, what the crucial issue is what we believe can actually be done on a safe basis. So in terms of running another 4-day market, we've already established that we do not believe that is a viable option. It's been put on the table that we go to a 3-day market. Again, we would struggle to justify that in terms of health and safety. How does that actually, you know, alter the kind of, alter the situation that we're in? So all three parties need to agree. It could be that ourselves and the Town Council agree, let's go with 2-day markets, and then LSD say, no, we don't want that. In which case, again, we're in the situation that, you know, it doesn't happen. The fundamental priority is that we need to run a safe event. In terms of contract costs, we've had a look at the contract. The ideal is that between us we come to a sensible and suitable solution whereby we mitigate as much as we can of the health and safety concerns that would allow an event to go ahead. Should that not be the case, there are various clauses in the contract. We would have to go through it. There could be costs. That's something we haven't explored because we're not yet at that position. There are numerous points in the contract that actually say if it's not able to go ahead because we can't provide the space, which is probably the nearest point we've got at this minute, then actually, you know, it can't run. So there are various bits in there, but we'd be guessing to know where that might end and what court would rule what way. There may be a cost. What I would say is the cost of that will be significantly less than should we find ourselves in court because, heaven forbid, we've had a crush injury and people have been, you know, injured or worse. So we have looked into the contract, but we certainly haven't gone down the line of what will it cost if, because I'd like to think mutually between the three parties we could come to a sensible solution, but we haven't gone down that line. I have met with Marcia and the legal team and we have looked at various options. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring in Councillor Curtis, Councillor Wally Huggins and Councillor Coucher and Councillor Crump. And it is of interest, before I move on, is to look at the Lincoln City Council's report on why they cancelled their market. It is really, really of interest if anybody has the time to be able to do that, because you know, and that they cancelled it for crush reasons, say health and safety reasons, but that had a knock-on effect on people coming to our market as a result. Councillor Curtis first, then Councillor Wally-Hoggins, Councillor Coucher, and then Councillor Crump.
Thank you, Leader. I think were the Victorian market to continue, I do agree the format needs to be changed. But after rereading the SAG report and picking up Councillor Rock's concerns over safety, I remain concerned about the safety, about the level of risk associated with the event. And having been at OSC on Friday, and I think Councillor Crump's going to pick this up, I know that other councillors share these concerns. I'm just wondering if the portfolio holder can confirm for the minutes that officers have assured her that the risks associated with this recommendation can be managed adequately and she would be satisfied with those assurances.
Councillor Grocott, do you want to come in at that
Yes,
point before we move on to others?
Yes, of course. I mean, even as I mentioned before, even if we agreed to 2.3 or another option moving forward, we are going to be subject to a heightened health and safety event management, and which involves a safety advisory group and traffic management, etc. So these will be with extra diligence because of the issues that have been raised quite rightly at OSC and in the Cabinet. And basically, if I'm not satisfied that this event is safe, as the regulatory authority, we can cancel it. I think that's what to say, isn't it?
Councillor Wally-Hoggins is next, and then Councillor Kircher and Councillor Crump.
Yes, I'm just placing on record today at this meeting, clearly it's your decision to make, but just a couple of points, if I may, that as a regulatory authority, if anything goes wrong, this goes direct to the Health and Safety Executive. The reputational damage, should anything go wrong, is immense for this great town of ours, of which all residents and those of us working here are justifiably proud. And I would also urge you, with regards to reputational damage, that, you know, we are living in living memory. We have the Hillsborough crushing disaster and also the Bradford fire disaster as well. And when you talk about those occasions, that is what defines those areas and those towns. It is not anything else that goes on there. That is always, always mentioned. So I do hope that in your deliberations there cannot be guarantees regarding crushing. I think we were very lucky last year with regards to the amount of people coming into the town that there wasn't something that happened, and I do urge you to think of the reputational damage and also the fact that there are many parents sitting around this table and family people, and just all of us as individuals have a right and a duty to protect those visiting Stratford-on-Avon, and that is what needs to be at the forefront of any decisions that are made here today. And guarantees are empty when we've got first-hand experience of just how very bad it was last year. Thank you.
Councillor Crump.
Councillor Coucher first.
Sorry, Councillor Coucher came first on the list, and then Councillor Crump. My apologies. I've got the list in front of me.
Thank you. And I think we have to remind ourselves that we inherited this contract. It's a contract which is, frankly, not fit for purpose. And we have now got to make the best that we possibly can of a very poor inheritance that we've taken on. I think one of the major issues that we have to address going forward is, frankly, the road chaos there was in and around Stratford on that particular time, and particularly during the weekdays when people couldn't get to work, people couldn't get to appointments, people couldn't get to the hospital. It really was, frankly, totally and utterly unacceptable. And so therefore, I think moving it purely to weekends, I think, does have some merit. However, clearly, the market is out of scale with what we can provide. And clearly there needs to be a lot more work done in terms of the minutiae of that. of how we actually deploy potential stalls, the number of them, and indeed how they're arrayed. I think certainly removing some of the entertainment attractions, I think, is a positive step. I would say in relation to car parking, if it was done at the weekends, we need to be talking to some of our key employers in and around the town about, can we utilise the NFU car park, can we utilise other car parks that we've got to try and keep traffic out of this town and stop the chaos. We need to make sure that there is continuity and accessibility at all times through the town, because not only is the problem about the crush within the market, I'm more concerned if a fire engine can't get out from Masons Road with our reduced fire cover that we're going to have in this area, then that would be a very serious matter for us as well. So there are major implications really for this. We do need to make sure the detail is correct.
Councillor Crump.
Thanks. I was going to be quite kind to Councillor Coucher, saying you mistook him for me because we're similar age and similar looking, but after that comment about the fire cover, I'll probably withdraw that, because I don't think that was probably necessary, and it's not true at the moment because the consultation hasn't ended and the proposals aren't in place. The fire cover during the day would still be the same or very similar because of the availability of the on-call firefighters during the day. And this undermines the fact that we are trying to get people, the congestion in the areas. I will go back to the OSC, I'm just not happy with that.
We're not discussing the fire service consultation.
But he did bring the fact, he mentioned the fire service, and it is part of the consultation. I don't think it was right for this, but we'll move on. Let's talk about the Victorian Christmas market. Concerning the actual Overview and Scrutiny Committee, there's quite a few here, and obviously Julie and Lorraine were, and Councillor Curtis was there as well, quite a few. We felt that we couldn't give a specific recommendation to the Cabinet from the proposals and options paragraph 2. But members did give a strong steer that the safety of residents, visitors and businesses should be prioritised over the commercial benefit to the town. So we needed to make sure that there was the specific and significant risks, sorry, the voice is not really good at that, identified in the relevant risk assessments have been identified and acted upon. If we were to go ahead, the risk assessments would have to be robust and dynamic, responding to things that happened on the day in terms of congestions. And it was felt that other councils have cancelled similar markets, and you mentioned Lincoln, as they felt some of the problems were too difficult to overcome. And whilst SDC is getting extra footfall because of this, there is potential for one significant risk to health and safety, like I said, residents, visitors and businesses, and also significant financial and reputational damage to SDC. So we also recognise the fact that the town is currently starting to suffer from roadworks and congestion already. So whether those works to be done by then, I don't know, I can't remember the timescale. But that might add to it. Coming into town from the A439 is not too bad, but getting out is a nightmare. So what we felt that it's a very difficult one, but safety of the residents, businesses and people visiting the market should be given the top priority. And then members made other suggestions such as parking, etc., emphasising how the park and ride might be strengthened and things like that. But because of the contract, when it first came out, nobody, unless they'd got Mystic Meg abilities, weren't able to forecast the success it had last year. And obviously the officers have had a lot to deal with. And I do feel so sorry for Julie and Craig and the team. But we are where we are now, and no action is not an option. The 2.2 option was felt not an option from OSC. Other members had various different opinions, so we didn't come to a consensus. But we feel you need to spend a lot of time and effort getting this right if you do decide to go ahead with this.
Yeah. Thank you. In the report, it is quite clear. The contract was extended in 2022. It was extended for 5 years with the words 4-day Christmas market within a town centre Christmas festival included in the contract, with no limit on the number of stalls allowed, nor any specification of the footprint. And yet the documents show that we knew already that the numbers were rising. In 2021, the numbers were 17,458. That had risen from 13,065 in 2018, again rising up. And in 2022, we already knew that the figures were rising. But we agreed to that extension of that contract. Last year, the figures were up to 18,890, a substantial increase again. We do have to consider, but we are constrained by the contract as well. It is noticeable that other areas, like, for example, although they're smaller, but other areas, when they do Christmas markets, do pay a lot more attention to things like Park and Ride, for example. I know the Ulster Food Festival is a very small event compared to this one, but all buses are laid on to be able to bring people into the town through a kind of a park and ride system, and people are not encouraged. So we do, that has not been put into place. A proper traffic management plan, although is there, it's not, obviously is not sufficient. So we've got a difficult position. We do have to work with others on this one, the town council as well as the district council, before we can alter the format. We do have to look at the contract and we have to negotiate with the contractors. So any recommendation that comes today is from our side, subject to working with those other partners. The options available are that we are proposing that it be over 2 consecutive weekends. Another option could be that it's cancelled altogether, but that is for others to decide. Given we cannot go, given the advice that we've been given on safety, given the numbers, the obvious increase in numbers, we cannot go to either a 3-day or a 6-day or a larger market. We have to look. Julie Lewis, do you want to come in at this point? Is it a technical matter?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something. When you said about working with the park and ride, we already do that. I just want to bring to your attention the fact that the fundamental big issue of the health and safety concern is the amount of people actually around the market. Now, the traffic congestion is a problem and it's inconvenient. It was serious when coaches were dropping off people in the middle of the gyratory and people were walking across the road. But if we take measures to actually make it easier for people to get here and to bus in more buses and to make more park and rides and more parking available, I actually have the concern that we actually make our problem even worse because we make it easier for people to actually get here. And our big issue is the fact that we cannot control the number of people that are actually in the area of the markets at any one time, and that is the fundamental problem. So, yeah, rest assured, we do work with traffic management, with county, with parking, etc., but the easier we make it for people to get here could actually make the situation worse, not better. Thank you.
And you're quite correct, and that's something. Councillor Passingham, did you want to come in at this? No, you didn't. Councillor Wallace, do you have a new point at all? Because you have already spoken 3 times on this.
I haven't spoken 3 times on
Twice,
this.
sorry,
I've
twice.
spoken
This is the
once
3rd time.
on this, actually. Can I just say that in 2022, in fact, the parking figures went down by 11%. So in 2021, the car parking figures for the Christmas market was at 17,458. It then went down by 11% to 15,582. So there is nothing in those figures as it going down. And just on page 61, there is nothing within those figures that would indicate that there's then going to be a rise of over 21% in attendees. And I'd also like to take some account of the fact that to declare a contract as not fit for purpose in front of officers who have written those contracts, I don't think is fair or gracious enough of this council. Thank you.
I'm afraid that is a point that has been made by our own officers, to be honest, as well. So I think we need to kind of, unless you've got any particularly new issues that have been brought forward, I think we really must move to the recommendation on this one. Have you got anything absolutely new on this?
Thank you. Yes, I mean,
Councillor
I would like, although in the 1.1, it does say that it doesn't specify the footprint of the Victorian Christmas market. One of the options I would like to have seen would be to explore the option of using the Bancroft.
I think there is a problem there because of the mud and the fact that it's grass and people would be slipping on the mud and we'd have thousands of pounds worth of damage that we would have to pay for. If it's on hard roads, then at least we do not have to pay that and recover that damage. Councillor Gist.
Just wanted to clarify, if we were to go for option 2.3, the 2 consecutive weekends, if there are any concerns that come up between now and then, can it be stopped? Because I'm really worried about this.
Yes, as I mentioned before, yes, as I say, we do have the retain the regulatory responsibility as well. Yeah. But as I say, I wouldn't hesitate to cancel it on advice from the Safety Advisory Group and my officers, officers who didn't actually write the contract.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And I think we've had a very thorough discussion of a very difficult subject. So we have a recommendation for us. This is all subject to our being able to now go forward and talk with the Town Council and the promoters. So the recommendation is that this Cabinet approves altering the format of the Victorian Christmas market to 2 consecutive weekends rather than a continuous 4-day Thursday to Sunday event, subject to the agreement of Stratford-upon-Avon Town Council. And obviously there would have to be then negotiations with the promoters as well. But it is the 2 councils that make those decisions and we have to take that forward. So the recommendation, Councillor, Julie Lewis.
Sorry, can I just clarify that a weekend, my definition of a weekend is Saturday and Sunday. It is two days.
Yeah.
It is not 2-3 days. And there has been some confusion over that.
That's my understanding. It is a Saturday and a Sunday. So the two weekends would make the 4 days in all. We're going to go to the vote. Can I have somebody that will propose that change? Councillor Grocott is going to propose it. Councillor Coles will second it. Do you agree with that recommendation? And it will all come back to us at a later stage. Thank you very much indeed. Do you approve? Agree. Thank you. I found that a very satisfactory debate of a very difficult subject, and I do appreciate your time and your patience with that. It is a very serious subject, so I'm glad we gave it the time that it deserved. Moving on, we've got the Warwickshire Safeguarding Annual Report, and this is Councillor Coles. Would you like to outline and give us the background?
Yes, thank you, Leader. This report is the annual update for noting by the Cabinet, together with recognition, I think, of the success of the Warwickshire collaboration and the continual improvement of safeguarding practices. The intention is to assure members that we have a well-developed approach and that we can have confidence in it. The Council is a member of the wider Warwickshire Safeguarding Partnership, and we work with other public bodies, voluntary and community sectors. We are committed to the partnership and we continue with them to develop the approach to ensure we manage the delivery of the safeguarding responsibilities in a robust way. The report has a great deal of data to convey the scale of the work underway, together with the annual safeguarding report for 22-23. The recommendations today are that the importance of the safeguarding agenda is noted, and a commitment to remaining a participant in the activity of the Warwickshire Safeguarding be reaffirmed, and that the recent steps to develop improved safeguarding practices and staff understanding are noted. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions on this one? Can I emphasise that this is one area where we do have multi-agency working, where we work across a whole range of partnerships. We've not only mentioned the Warwickshire County Council, but the clinical commissioning groups, Integrated Care Board, and the police. It is absolutely ideal that we do continue in those kind of agenda and that kind of partnership. Does anybody have any particular questions that they want to raise, or are you happy that we go to the recommendations, which is recognising the importance of the safeguarding agenda and the commitment to remain a participant in the activity of Warwickshire Safeguarding, that we reaffirm that we are part of that, and that we note the improved safeguarding practices and staff understanding of those practices. It's absolutely key that we improve and make sure that that we safeguard all our vulnerable residents, adults or children, as we go forward. Does anybody have anything that they want to add to that? Okay, so we've got the recommendations. I will move those recommendations. Councillor Cole, will you second them? Okay. And how do you agree to it? Okay, agree? Thank you very much indeed. I do hope that we will get a report back of that as it moves forward, because again, a very, very important area that we're part of, partnership that we're part of. The next one is the approval of the procurement, permission to tender for the Community Builder project. This was one that applies to Stratford-upon-Avon, to a particular part of Stratford-upon-Avon, which are priority wards, to have a community builder provision. And Councillor Coles, this is your portfolio. Would you like to outline?
Yes. Thank you, Leader. We have the report within here of the success of the community builder role within 2 wards within Stratford-on-Avon, and we are coming here, the recommendations today, to seek permission to re-procure the role for a contract term of up to 5 years. And this would be 2 years plus a further 3 years, which would obviously be subject to future funding and positive evaluation. The report also seeks approval for the existing contract to be extended for a further 2 months to the 7th of August to allow time for a robust procurement process and then a seamless service delivery. The role is jointly funded with contributions from Town Trust and Town Council, as well as ourselves, and it does contribute to several aspects of the Growing Opportunities Plan, recently approved by the Council, and it also addresses the Government's Levelling Up agenda. You'll note under 1.3.1 that funding was yet to be confirmed, and I can confirm that the Town Trust have committed £23,000 per annum for 24-25 and 25-26, and the Town Council have confirmed £5,000 for the financial year 24-25. I've been on the receiving end of reports from various organisations from the Community Builder. It is a great success to date. There is an evaluation included as part in Appendix 1 as part of our report. Learning from the project will be incorporated into the tender document and into the procurement exercise. And the Council's contribution represents 50% of the total costs, and it is a cost-effective and actually quite innovative way to deliver to support to some of our more challenged communities. And as portfolio holder, I have to say that it is definitely a model that we would like to encourage and look at in future to support our commitments in other areas as well. So, yes, I'd like to bring forward the recommendations that 1, permission is granted to re-procure the provision to enhance delivery for development work in the challenged communities within the priority wards of Stratford-upon-Avon Town, that the existing contract is extended by 2 months to the 7th of August so that we can do a good re-procurement exercise within a time frame that allows the transition between the pilot and the re-procured contract, and that the contract award be delegated to the Head of Housing, Revenues and Customer Services in consultation with the portfolio holder. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. I read this with interest because I'm involved in things in Ulster Town Council, where Ulster Town Council does something very similar, that working with their particular communities as well. I was interested to, to note that Orbit had withdrawn from this one, because I've been trying to get them to be involved in the Ulster type work. So I'm just wondering whether they had, whether anybody knows of any particular reasons why they decided not to continue.
Yes, Leader. The analysis they did in terms of those that attend the events, they decided that there were insufficient of their tenants to warrant their future contribution, and that was the reason they withdrew. We will continue to monitor that, though, going forward, and they have said that they remain open to communication should anything change.
Thank you. And perhaps where towns, other towns are doing similar activities, we could perhaps again exchange information and learn from each other. I'm involved in Ulster Town Council, and then there will be other towns and parishes that are doing very similar work, but it's we can always learn from each other. Councillor Rock.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, I was going to say something similar, that we have. It would seem a successful scheme here, and there's an opportunity perhaps to learn from this going forward here. But we've selected some communities on the basis of super output areas, from what I can see. The problem with super output areas is that sometimes disguises pockets of deprivation within those. And one wonders, when we've done this, exactly as the leader was saying, whether there's learning points for other areas, some of which might be rural, some of which might be semi-urban in market towns, whether we might extend that in coming periods, those learning points, because, as I say, super output areas can be quite misleading about where deprivation might be, and the idea of community building is important, and many parishes do undertake that in different sort of ways, and we were talking earlier on about supporting those parishes in doing those endeavours, and perhaps in a different sort of way. So I think it's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, just being able to learn from it, it would be useful for all parishes, towns, etc. Once we've got a successful procurement. But this is for the approval of procurement, permission to tender for going forward. Councillor Passingham, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think, yeah, this is seems a very successful scheme, and it's great that the communities in deprived areas should be helped, especially at these times. But there are, as Councillor Rock says, lots of pockets of deprived housing in the rural areas, and there's quite a large pocket in Shipston. So it would be nice if similar funds could be found at some time, hopefully, when there's less austerity, to fund community builders in the rural areas. But I think there's also a problem with all the new housing estates as well, which have got no community organisations, no community centres, no community spirit as yet. So it would be really useful to have community builder type workers in the new housing estates, and I know in Shipston, but and then we're going to have, it seems, a lot more housing sort of dumped on us. I was going to say that's probably not the most diplomatic word but with very little infrastructure and very little support for all this new housing. So it's important that similar things like this happen, I think.
Yeah, Councillor Coles.
Yes. Anyone who knows me is I'm not backward of being forward about proposing spending money on really good projects like this. I think one of the most invaluable things of this role, which is interesting that it is a community builder, and that is what we are looking to do. You have a big area of housing. You don't get time to build organically in the way that a community would over decades. So you need to support that. And I think certainly in terms, this has been aimed in the Stratford-on-Avon town wards, it has been aimed at areas of deprivation. And obviously we all know it's difficult and getting harder for people, and has had a really positive effect. And I think that is certainly, I think we would all want to see replicated elsewhere. We will certainly be keeping an eye on it, taking the learning, working with other groups, and hopefully, yes, to certainly develop it as a project across the district. Thank you.
I know that when I went to see Longmarston and the Mearn Vale area, that was one of my visits. That was a point that was made there about a new community and the need for helping to form communities as people moved into an area of new housing, of Garden Village, for example. So that was John Kefford would like to say something at this point.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, and I think the real benefits, so we're preparing the South Yorkshire local plan. The real benefit of having a plan is it puts you in a much stronger, positive, proactive position, lots of P's there, to capture, if you like, those, not just the harder physical infrastructure, but the softer infrastructure as well. And we've got an example in the district where we have had a community sort of builder type role, and it's working really well. So I think, yeah, there's lessons we can learn, and I think moving forwards we can really roll those things out to make sure that when we do build the homes that we need across the district, we're doing it from a place perspective and a community's perspective, and not just a numbers perspective. So yeah, we're certainly, just to give you members comfort, that's certainly the direction we're certainly looking to do through the new plan. And if we can be proactive about that and positive about that, then we should see the success.
I've got two people, Councillor Curtis and Councillor Grocott. No, Councillor Grocott. Councillor Grocott, what?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I just wanted to commend the activities of community builders. I've been with the community kitchen. I've taken part in that. Also, Rubbish Friends. It's done lovely, it's wonderful work. The only thing I'd like to add is obviously with my ward, it's a lot of new buildings, not a community centre, but you're getting lots of young families coming in, and it's an area. Is an area with a lot of a younger population. An awful lot of these activities so far have been based at the old community, which is lovely. Just wondering if there's going to be any actions going forward more for young families and for young people, so they don't entertain themselves on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know the debate has gone wider than the actual the actual recommendations, which is to approve procurement, but it does outline how important we feel this is, that we do work to build communities. So the recommendation is that permission is granted to procure a community builder provision to enhance the delivery of community development work in the most challenged communities within priority wards in Stratford-upon-Avon town, that the existing contract is extended by a further 2 months to 7th of August 24 to ensure that we re-procure within a time frame that permits a seamless transition between pilot and re-procured contract, and for the contract award to be delegated to the Head of Housing, Revenues and Customer Services in consultation with the portfolio holder. So, ladies, you have your task cut out. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I'm happy. Councillor Coles, are you happy to propose it? And Councillor Grocott is seconding. Do you all approve of it? All right, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. That's another good outcome. And moving on, and this is within the Councillor Curtis's portfolio, and this is about a payment services software contract. Councillor Curtis, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Fascinating stuff, I know. This report seeks authority to negotiate and award a new 5-year contract for the provision of payment services software, which meets the accreditation standard required by the Payment Card Industry Security Standards Council. It's a brief report. It outlines the background evidence base and legal implications, and I've had several meetings with Mr. Bowles, Section 151 officer, about this, and looking particularly at points 3.1, the supplier has indicated that they will cease to support on-premises solutions beyond 30th of June 2024, and any security accreditation will cease at that point. And also the legal implications, 5.1.1, The terms of the current contract are not suitable for a cloud-based solution. In fact, they're quite outdated. To adapt it to a hosted solution, the current contract would require substantial modification, if not a complete rewrite. So having had a number of meetings with Mr. Burrell about this, taking those points there, I would agree with his recommendation that a new contract is negotiated in accordance with option 5, paragraph 215. There is a confidential appendix which sets out a likely breakdown of the costs. I was slightly surprised. Cabinet will see that the figures are based on 8% annual inflation. Given there is a government target of 2.5% from 2025, this may appear on the high side, but it's probably better to err on the side of caution. But if Cabinet wish, I'll be happy to take this up with Mr. Burrell on his return from a well-earned break. Thank you, Leader.
And again, this is subject to an exempt appendix, which Cabinet members and others have. So unless we want to go into those, and we would have to, if we wanted to go into those, we would have to go into exempt. Are you happy that we just continue with the debate? Have you got sufficient information now that you've read read those blue papers? So we have, it's a new contract. It has to be negotiated, and it's to be negotiated in accordance with option 5, which is paragraph 2.5, and that is to proceed with the negotiations with the current supplier, etc., etc. Councillor Gist.
I wanted if Councillor Curtis could clarify at 2.5. Said the supplier has indicated that extended temporary support will be provided should the migration not be fully complete by 30th of June 2024. I presume there's going to be something a bit more formal. If it all goes pear-shaped, they won't abandon us.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I will take that up with Mr. Burrell on his return. But thank you. I'll make that point with him. Thank you.
And this is a proposal that is being negotiated. But on being satisfied with the outcome of the negotiation, the head of resources and section 151 officer, it's what the recommendation is that they be authorised to award a 5-year contract for the supply and support of payment services software after they've negotiated and are satisfied with that outcome. Are you happy? Are you happy to propose that?
Yes, I would like to propose those two recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
And anybody wanting to second it? Councillor Gist? And are you happy that those negotiations start for the new contract? Thank you. Agree?
Agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Agree. Moving on, and again, it's Councillor Curtis. It's the capital budget monitoring period 1 to 10, 23 to 24. And would you like to outline what is involved in this paper and the recommendations and the reasoning for the recommendation? Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Yes. This report provides the Cabinet with details of the capital budget monitoring for the period 1 to 10 up to 31st of January. I'd like to thank Nicola Reynolds for preparing the report and the appendices. Cabinet will see there's very little change in the report from the report presented in November. In November, that gave the actual and committed expenditure for the period to 30th of November was 6,435,000 as against a period of 6,578,869 for period 1 to 10. So very, very little change there. Breakdown of the summary in Table 1, the capital budget summary, and Table 2, capital expenditure, is found in Appendix 1 on page 1, and that gives further detail of expenditure by service on the following pages. And Appendix 2 gives a summary of Section 106 funding currently held by District Council. Just as a little footnote, Cabinet may be pleased to note that on the 14th of February, the Housing Investment Panel awarded Warwickshire Rural Housing Association a grant of £351,000 from Section 106 commuted sums, and that was for a local needs housing scheme in Broome, which I'm sure we would all welcome. I touched on Evesham Place earlier on. Tony Perks has reassured me that planning is underway, and it has further reassured us it will be good when that does come on scheme, because the annual savings from bed and breakfast will be in the region of 105 to 115,000, depending on how number one is formatted. I think just as importantly as the savings over the MTFS and longer term to the council, that accommodation will provide more secure and supportive accommodation than from B&B, which isn't particularly satisfactory either for some of our most vulnerable residents, nor from some of the neighbouring residential properties. So, as I say, there's very little change from the previous report from November. It comes with recommendations that the position on capital expenditure and income for the period 110 of 23-24 is received. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. I was particularly interested in the table 2 and looking at some of the recommendations there. Evesham Place still on, proceeding, and the Gaydon Light on Heath New Community Hub, I think Councillor Rock will be pleased with. And then there's also affordable housing for refugees as well, which is something, again, that has been ongoing for quite some time. So thank you very much indeed. Councillor Wally-Huggins, you wanted to come in as opposition leader.
Yes, just to say that how lucky you are really that there was so much reserve held that you've now got a favourable variance of £2.3 million, which is on interest really accrued from reserves held, and this is helping to offset the vast number of unfavourable variances within this report. Thank you.
I didn't really get that, but anyway, thank you very much indeed for trying to clarify to us what the situation is. Councillor Curtis.
I think perhaps Councillor Wally-Hoggins is referring to the unfavourable variances in the revenue report rather than the capital report, which I just presented.
Okay, thank you. That's a bit clearer. Thank you. Moving on, we've now got the recommendation, and the recommendation is that the position on capital expenditure and income for this period, 1 to 10, 23-24 received. Any issues identified for further consideration to be addressed by a further report to the Cabinet and the portfolio holder. Councillor Curtis, are you moving that?
Yes, I would like to move those recommendations.
And anybody seconding that? I'm happy to second that. Are you all in favour of that report? Thank you very much indeed. And moving on, next one is the revenue budget monitoring. And again, it's Councillor Curtis who will cover this item. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Councillor
Leader.
Curtis.
Before I present this report, what I would just like, now that the budget was approved at Council last week, if I may, Leader, I'd just like to thank Mr. Burrells, our Section 151 officer, and all of his team for the really hard work they put into helping us present the budget, and also the work they put in with helping the 2 opposition budgets. So I think the finance team deserve our great thanks. So moving on. This summary to update the Cabinet on the position of the Council's revenue expenditure and income as at period 10, with an estimated outturn position for each service for 23-24. Section 2 gives the estimate outturn position for the year, and Section 3 the period 10 positions by service. Section 4 gives the estimated outturn position for 23-24 by service, and further detail for that is given in Appendix 1. And Appendix 2 gives a breakdown of expenditure by category, section, and the updated earmarks reserves are found in Appendix 4. Jessica Lale has provided a helpful commentary on this, and I'll just make a few other comments. The period 10 position is a favourable 3,146,784, and the estimated outturn for the Council at the end of the year to be a favourable position of 1,651,000. This is an improvement of just over £500,000 from the previous report. And I think following last week's budget debate, this should give further assurance to residents that council finances under this administration are being managed prudently. Just a couple of other small points. I'm happy to take questions. As I say, 312. Business rates, this is due to rate liability which was being incurred by the RSC at 100 Masons Road. They did have the lease on that. That has now stopped, so we are incurring that liability. 313, council tax. The unfavourable variance there is due to temporary employee costs. The team had to take on agency staff as they'd struggled to recruit staff for that, but we've now managed to recruit 3 council tax and 3 benefit staff who are still being trained, and we hope to end the use of agency staff by the year end. There has also been significant increase, as we know from the house building, across the district in council tax properties, which has also resulted in more work. The HUGS, the Homes Upgrade Grant Scheme grant of £246,900 has been received, earmarked to update heating in properties that are privately owned. Criteria have to be met by applicants, but again, this grant demonstrates this administration's commitment to supporting some of our most vulnerable residents. Point 315, I've touched on previously, the unfavourable variance there, utility cost rating valuation. We are still appealing that rating valuation. The new tenancy arrangements entered into by the previous administration haven't yet been finalised. As we know, the expected tenant didn't receive their expected financial support from Warwickshire County Council, which has meant a delay. Income from letting the second floor was budgeted at £37,000 for 25-26 and £74,000 for 26-27. So it's not a major financial impact over the term, but my understanding is that the potential tenant is still looking at alternative funding, and capital is set aside for conversion costs and refiguring the entrance. And Mr. Perks is nodding, so I assume I'm right on that. Thank you, Mr. Perks. The corporate budget, as was touched on just now, the investment interest shows a favourable variance of £2,326,000 as against the last report of just over £2 million. And obviously, as we know, this is a result of higher interest rates. As previously, Mr. Burrell cautions against projecting this increased income forward, given the volatility of interest rates and the international situation. But the year outturn position is estimated to be around 2,800,000. Going on to the estimated outturn position, this continues to improve. In November, the report was a figure of an estimated outturn of 9.5 million. By January, this had gone up to just under 11 million, and now the estimated outturn has increased again to 11,300,000. And again, I think this shows our success in managing the council's finances responsibility. The earmarked reserves, there has been a slight fall in the earmarked reserves of around 150,000, but earmarked reserves are there to be invested in services for our residents. So I welcome that fall, and I think we will be taking a look at the earmarked reserves and seeing how they can be invested for the future of our residents. Council plan, I'll just go very slightly off-piste, if I may, Mr. Perks, at this point, just to say that we have the 2.2 million towards our council plan and change programme. That will invest in the changes needed to safeguard against future financial pressures. We need to invest in new technologies, in commercialisation, in service improvement and stronger partnerships with the voluntary sector and streamlining existing council processes. And that will ensure that we can continue to deliver high quality, cost-effective services in the longer term. I'm just going to pick up the comment made by the Leader of the Opposition that, yes, the additional income from interest rates is a welcome addition to the council's funds. However, were it not for the Conservative government's disastrous economic policies, those interest rates wouldn't have gone as high as they have. Residents wouldn't have been facing double-digit inflation, food inflation in excess of 15%. So I think, and were we not in such a volatile situation with interest rates unknown, we wouldn't have to perhaps hold, as Mr Barrow is proposing, £1.5 million in an inflation reserve. Were the situation more stable, and we had a more stable economic outlook, some of that inflation reserve, which I think is prudent to hold at this point, that could be released. But we have to protect our residents against a very uncertain future. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just like to come back briefly. We have been looking at the budget, and obviously with the 2.327 million additional interest figures, without that, there'd been an underlying shortfall of about 660,000. So this money has been helpful. Just come back that, you know, the economic, it's not just affecting this country, the economic uncertainty. Obviously, the last few years we've had COVID, we've got the issues in Ukraine, which have caused significant inflationary aspects throughout the whole of Europe, not just in Stratford. And we've got the volatile situation in the Middle East, again, which is potentially causing the increase in the petrol prices and making people make different arrangements, which is causing additional costs in terms of transport, and not necessarily obviously going through the Suez Canal or that way in different areas. So I think to just blame the government for all these things is slightly unfair, and we must remember that over the years that the Liberal Democrats were actually in coalition for the first 5 years of this government. So just some slightly points there. And being you've gone off-piste, I thought I might as well go slightly off-piste on that one.
I think if we started to get political, which I hope we're not, but if you start comparing the UK to all the other G7 countries, I think you'll find that we're in a very poor position. Thank you very much indeed. And we're quite unique in that, in some of the issues that, where we seem to have been hit hardest of any comparable country in not only in the G7, but in many other comparable economies. We'll leave it at that. The recommendations now. Councillor Curtis, do you want to come in before the recommendations
Leader, may I just add one other comment I meant to make, and it's picking up on the comment about variances. Some variances in budget are inevitable. I'm sure we all know that from our own personal budgeting. I certainly do. You know, it's events, dear boy, and events such as the Ettington recycling fire and the unexpected levels of interest income. Now we have finalised the budget for 24-25. There are other areas that of financial management that I would like to explore with Mr. Burrell, and one of those is profiling through the year to see if we can't see any ways that we can better profile so that we are able to avoid some more expected variances, if you like. And I'd like to also look at see if there are consistent overspends or underspends, see if there is room for improvement. So, having got the budget process out of the way, for now, although it obviously starts again imminently, there are other areas in finances that I would like to spend some time looking at with Mr. Burrell. But in the meantime, Leader, yes, I'd like to propose those proposals. Thank you.
So the proposals have been proposed. I don't know if anybody wants to second them, but the recommendations are that the actual net variances at period 10 and the estimated revenue outturn for 2023-24 are received. Any issues identified for further consideration to be addressed by a further report to the Cabinet, the portfolio holder, and that the write-offs contained with paragraph 2.3 be noted. And we will get further reports back, Councillor Curtis. I've been assured of that. So thank you very much indeed. So we've had that proposed. Did we have it seconded? Councillor Coles. And the recommendations. Are you happy to move them? Okay. Thank you. And moving on. Issues from Ovian Scrutiny Committee. Is there any issues that you want to raise, Councillor Crump?
Just briefly, we've covered most of them. One of the big important things that came was the Council's serious finance duty. Oh, sorry. I'll just ignore. There was the serious violence duty that Stratford District Council has in association with the county as well. So that's a really good presentation from Sam Semensic and Jonathan Toy. It's all about engaging with people. We need to understand the issues causing the serious violence, but councillors have a part to play in this, to engage with the communities, particularly around domestic violence that seems to be underreported in rural areas. So again, if we can find out what it is, we've got a really important role. We've also got a part in engaging with parish councils, local schools, voluntary organisations, community groups, again to spread awareness of serious violence, domestic violence, and the importance of social investment. So really good talk. And then again, we touched on areas through the planning process of CCTV, how we can integrate things into local plan, and making sure that the fire alarms work as well. No, seriously. Social infrastructure is just as important as well as hard infrastructure. So that builds on the point about the community builder. And we also spoke at the same time the importance of pubs in terms of our task and finish group and what parts they play in the community as well. So it's all about social cohesion as well. So that was about it. Thank you.
I'm just wondering, Councillor Crump, whether it's something that maybe the Overview and Scrutiny Committee might be interested in, because as you know, when it comes to the Domestic Abuse Act responsibilities, the County Council has received 2 substantial sums from government for in both 23-24. There is a contract that's arranged through Refuge for running the domestic abuse refuge in Stratford. And the requirement for under the Domestic Abuse Act to deliver units of refuge is done by Warwickshire County Council in this district. But I would like to know just how well they are performing on that. Maybe that's something that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee could ask about, because we work in partnership with the County Council, but it is the County Council's overall responsibility. But they are delivering a service for this area, and we have to work with them. Is that a subject that may be subject that an Overview and Scrutiny could take?
I can have a word with the portfolio holder, who happens to be sitting here talking to you now. I'm more than happy to... yes, we have got this duty safe accommodation. I think there's an extra 36 units off the top of my head coming, not just in the whole of Warwickshire, for safer accommodation to cover different needs, and so the families can go. And there's all sorts of different needs that we're trying to accommodate. So yes, I think we can. I'm more than happy to speak to the portfolio holder at the county to get somebody
yes, indeed, in order that we work better together, because there's so much of that responsibility is with the county council. We'd like to know just how that applies to this district and how we can work with it in that area.
Yes,
thank you.
Some great work is going on, and refuge exemplars in this area. So yeah, it's really positive. So I'm sure we can get that on the work programme ASAP.
We've got cabinet committees, there are none, and on block items, unless anybody has made a request for the item to be discussed, and I've received no requests, they are taken en bloc, and that's the Housing Investment Panel and the Member Development Working Group. So, Councillor Coucher.
I was in attendance at the Housing Investment Panel, and I'm not included in the on the report.
Good point. Part F, other matters, urgent business. I've received nothing, and we have already discussed the items that would have excluded the public, so we don't need to exclude the public. There were 2 exempt appendixes, but we haven't needed to discuss them, but just to bring them to your attention that there were 2 exempt items. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of the meeting, so I declare the